Mark Goldbridge, and I nearly went with I Don't Believe It as the title today, but I've overdone that, so I've gone with What's Going On. Well, what's going on is the reaction to two incredible bits of tier lists, if you want to call it that, because I was in tears. The Telegraph have done their top 5 signings of the season. I don't believe it. And I also want to talk about Jamie Carragher's top 10 Premier League goalkeepers of all time. Look, we only spoke about this a couple of weeks ago. I said top 3 signings of the season for me was Zubimendi, Xhaka.
So after hearing that, I completely understand the frustration, because this is becoming a pattern now. We're not just talking about one controversial list. We're talking about repeated rankings that leave out obvious names, push questionable picks, and then act surprised when fans react. And that's the key word here, react.
And then either Mbeumo or Ekitike in third. They've put Mbeumo as the signing of the season, and as a Man United fan, I don't think that's right, and I'll explain why in a moment. But
because when you look at that Telegraph top 5, it just doesn't hold up under real football analysis. Putting Bryan Mbeumo as signing of the season? I get it. He's had a strong campaign. He's delivered numbers. He's been influential. But signing of the season is about impact relative to expectation and team transformation. That's where someone like Martin Zubimendi or even Granit Xhaka has a stronger case. Players who completely shifted the balance and control of their teams.
You know, the cynic in me, well, look. This is hot on the heels of the top 60 Premier League players of all time that didn't even have Vidic.
And then Mark Guéhi at number 3? That's where the credibility drops. You cannot rank someone that high when they've barely had enough minutes to define their season. Signings of the season aren't based on potential or name value. They're based on sustained influence. And this is where I agree with the bigger point. Are these lists engineered for outrage? Because outrage equals clicks. Leave out iconic names in all-time lists. Overrate a current signing. Put something controversial at number 1. Suddenly, everyone's talking about it.
Or Irwin in by The Athletic. And the cynic in me says, and look, one man's genius opinion is another man's idiotic opinion.
But here's the thing. Football debate should be about analysis, not provocation. There's nothing wrong with disagreement. But when rankings ignore context, minutes played, tactical influence, and consistency, it stops being debate and starts being engagement farming. And that's the real issue. Because if we're talking honestly, the signing of the season conversation should be about who genuinely elevated their team, not who generates the biggest reaction online. And that's the difference.
But I think Mbeumo, not because he went to the AFCON for a month, and I think some people might say that, but I think he's been a bit up and down.
Nah, this is where the debate actually gets serious. Because once you move past the surface-level outrage, the real issue is how certain types of players just don't get the credit they deserve. 2 goalkeepers in the top 5 signings of the season? That already raises eyebrows.
He's been a really good signing, as has Cunha, but they've had a bit of up and downs. And I just wouldn't put him... I'd probably, like I said, I'd probably put him...
Not because keepers can't be transformative. They absolutely can. But when you stack that against midfielders who dictate entire systems, the balance just feels off. And then we get to the big one, Martin Zubimendi.
Mo 3 with Ekitike. I'd put Xhaka 2 and I'd put Zubimendi number 1. But they've destroyed it by putting Guéhi in there. I just don't...
This is the perfect example of a player being underrated because he's not flashy. He's not doing stepovers. He's not posting viral moments. He's doing the fundamentals at an elite level, controlling tempo, breaking lines with progressive passes, positioning himself perfectly in transition. And that Michael Carrick comparison? It makes sense.
Either modern journalism is falling off and they're not watching football anymore, or they're doing it on purpose, because that's incredible to me. But give me your thoughts. Give me your top 3 in the chat.
Carrick was never the headline. He was the foundation. And Zubimendi is the same. First season in the Premier League, walks into a high-pressure environment, plays alongside Declan Rice, and instantly brings control and balance. That's not easy. That's elite football IQ.
Which moves me on to Carragher. So this was on... Look, I'm not disrespecting Carragher in the sense that I don't think he's doing it on purpose.
When you join a team fighting at the top and you immediately look like you've always belonged there, that's impact. And that's why the fashionable argument matters. Players who dominate quietly don't get the same hype as attackers or high-profile names. But if you actually watch the games, not just the highlights, you see who's running the show.
I just think he's got his own mind, and that's absolutely fine. And this one, we might be on a little bit more of a sticky wicket, but he said his top 5 goalkeepers of Premier League all.
So for me, leaving Zubimendi out of that top 5, that's not just controversial. That's ignoring the tactical reality of the season. Because signing of the season isn't about noise. It's about influence. And Zubimendi has been influence personified.
But I think Mbeumo, not because he went to the AFCON for a month, and I think some people might say that, but I think he's been a bit up and down.
All right, now this is where the passion kicks in, because I actually understand what he means when he calls Zubimendi the IQ test of the season. That might sound dramatic, but think about it.
He's been a really good signing, as has Cunha, but they've had a bit of up and downs. And I just wouldn't put him. I'd probably, like I said, probably put him.
If you genuinely watch the Premier League this year, not just highlights, not just goal compilations, you'd know how dominant Zubimendi has been in controlling games. This isn't about hype. It's about influence. First season in England, immediate composure, tactical intelligence, consistency week after week. That's elite adaptation.
Mo 3 with Ekitike. I'd put Xhaka 2 and I'd put Zubimendi number 1. But they've destroyed it by putting Guehi in there. I just don't.
And I agree. That matters more than flashes. Now when it comes to Bryan Mbeumo, this is where balance is important. Has he been a very good signing? Yes. Has he had big moments? Absolutely. But signing of the season means sustained excellence. And if we're being honest, he has had patches where he's gone quiet.
Either modern journalism is falling off and they're not watching football anymore, or they're doing it on purpose, because that's incredible to me. But give me your thoughts. Give me your top 3 in the chat.
Same with Xhaka. Strong impact, leadership, quality. But there have been ups and downs. Zubimendi hasn't had that dip. That's the difference. And this is where I think the journalism point becomes interesting. Is it laziness?
Which moves me on to Carragher. So this was on. Look, look, I'm not disrespecting Carragher in the sense that I don't think he's doing it on purpose.
Or is it intentional controversy? Because when you leave out the most tactically consistent midfielder in the league from your top 5, you're either not watching properly or you're prioritizing debate over accuracy. And look, football is subjective. Everyone has opinions, but credibility comes from context.
I just think he's got his own mind, and that's absolutely fine. And this one, we might be on a little bit more of a sticky wicket, but he said his top 5 goalkeepers of Premier League all.
For me, Zubimendi has to be top 3 minimum. Personally, I'd have him number 1 as well, because he's elevated the structure of his entire team. And that's what elite signings do. They don't just score goals. They change the way a team functions. That's the real test.
You know, kids will be kids. They're fantasists. But I have a little bit of a problem with this because.
All right. Now we're entering dangerous territory, the all-time Premier League goalkeeper debate. And I get the gatekeeping joke because context matters. The Premier League started in 1992. If you didn't actually watch certain eras, it's very easy to judge purely off reputation or highlights.
Courtois, De Gea, Alisson, Schmeichel, Cech. I'm not even sure that's the right top 5. I'm not. I think Van der Sar should be.
Now let's break this down properly. Check it number 1. That's fair. Longevity, titles, clean sheets, big game performances, strong case. Schmeichel absolutely belongs in the conversation. Dominant presence, leader of a title-winning machine.
In there because he won Premier League titles for Man United. I think I can't remember how many he won. It's got to be 3 or 4.
Alisson, modern elite, transformed Liverpool's defensive structure. But here's where it gets interesting. Edwin van der Sar. Leaving van der Sar out of a Premier League top 5 is extremely questionable. Multiple league titles with Manchester United. Record-breaking clean sheet streak. Calmness, distribution, big game reliability. He wasn't flashy. He was flawless in structure.
And could be more. I'm trying to think when he signed for us. Might be 5. I'd have to double check that. But also, I think he's got the record for the amount.
And I actually agree here. Van der Sar over De Gea in an all-time Premier League context makes sense. De Gea had outrageous peak seasons, unreal shot stopping, but Van der Sar brought stability to title-winning sides year after year.
The most clean sheets in a row. And I think Van der Sar is ahead of De Gea, in my opinion. So, and I love De Gea, but I think Van der Sar is ahead of De Gea.
Now Thibaut Courtois. This is where I think reputation creeps in. Incredible goalkeeper overall, especially because of what he's done at Real Madrid. But if we're strictly talking Premier League impact, De Gea had more defining seasons in England. And that's the key. This debate should be about Premier League legacy, not global career resume.
I'm coming at it from a United fan, unbiased there. I think Van der Sar is ahead of De Gea. And I think De Gea is ahead of Courtois in the Premier League. I think Courtois is...
All-time lists demand consistency, titles, records, influence over an era. And when you look at it that way, Van der Sar missing out feels like the biggest oversight of all. Because if we're judging purely on Premier League greatness, he absolutely belongs in that top 5 conversation. No question.
Wouldn't be even as good as Bernd Leno, because he can't use his feet. It was a different time of goalkeeping. It's like asking Kenny Doll.
All right, this is where legacy really matters. When we're talking all-time Premier League goalkeepers, we have to separate two things: modern ability versus era dominance.
Dalglish, to be a good player for Liverpool now, he'd be rubbish because of the fitness and the speed of the game. You can only play the game that you're in. But Peter Schmeichel...
Because yes, football has evolved. Distribution matters more. Sweeper keepers are essential. The game is faster. But you can't downgrade greatness because the game changed. You judge players based on the era they dominated.
From 1992 to when he left Manchester United, which was 99, was the best goalkeeper in the world, let alone the Premier League.
And that's why the Peter Schmeichel argument is so powerful. From 1992 to 1999, he wasn't just one of the best in England. He was arguably the best goalkeeper in the world. Commanding presence, shot stopping, leadership, big moments. He defined that Manchester United era. And that matters.
For 7 years, he was the best goalkeeper in the world. And at that time, and the way he was spoken about...
This isn't just about clean sheet numbers or save percentages. It's about aura. It's about impact. It's about how opponents felt when they saw him in goal. Now Petr Cech absolutely deserves huge respect. Consistency, longevity, titles. But if we're talking pure dominance at a specific peak in Premier League history, Schmeichel stands above.
Was different to the way Petr Cech was spoken about when he was at Chelsea and Arsenal. So in my opinion, Schmeichel was the best goalkeeper the Premier League's ever had. So I'd put Schmeichel number 1.
On Courtois, I agree. World-class goalkeeper overall. But if we're strictly judging Premier League legacy, his Chelsea spell doesn't outweigh what De Gea or Van der Sar did across multiple seasons in England. And Van der Sar missing out? That's the biggest issue for me. Titles, records, stability. He was the foundation of another dominant United side.
Cech's a very good goalkeeper, and people will talk to me about least goals conceded and that, but I'm talking about Schmeichel won the bloody Euros with Denmark. Like, it's not just a...
So for me, the top tier has to include Schmeichel, Cech, Alisson, De Gea, and Van der Sar, with the order open to debate. But number 1, if we're judging the Premier League era and context, Peter Schmeichel set the standard. And that's why this debate will never die, because greatness depends on how you define it.